I spent all year trying to think of my costume. Halloween's over.
What do we do now?
You can wear those costumes to Twin Cities Con. Minnesota's Comic-Con is back the weekend after Halloween. Catch your favorite celebs like Danny Trejo, Jason Lee, and the cast of Clerks, Mallrats, Star Wars, Blue's Clues, Bluey, Avatar, Naruto, and so much more. Buy tickets now at TwinCitiesCon.com.
Hey, Chaz Kangas here for Speak Minneapolis, and I am very excited because this weekend is Twin Cities Con from November 3rd through the 5th, and one of the many illustrious guests who is going to be there is my guest today. You know him as an innovator, you know him as a Minnesota icon, you know him as one of the long-lasting, incredibly consistent practitioners of the grappling arts. You may know him as 123 Kid, X-Pac, Syxx, the Lightning Kid, and so many more names. The great Sean Waltman. Mr. Waltman, how are you doing today?
What's up, Chaz? I thought you were going to leave Lightning Kid out for a second there.
Oh, heavens forbid. No, we know our, we know our audience here, can't those classic Sharkies memories,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So you're
I'm excited, man. It's been a long ass time since I've had an appearance in Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. I think the last one you had here, I believe, was at a Fan HQ signing, and I just remember the tickets got sold out like instantly.
There was very few tickets. They only let so many people come to that. I was wondering what the deal was. Don't you guys want to make more money?
Mm-hmm.
This is, anyways, whatever. Yeah, that was it was a while ago, and it was on a smaller scale, and I think Twin Cities Con's gonna be a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm. Great. So with this, with it coming back to Minnesota, and now especially a lot of the convention stuff reopening, are you a fan of doing the convention appearances?
I am. Honestly, it's one of the things I enjoy most about this part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have an authentic connection with the people that come to see me, and it's like the most important thing to me. If I got to stay an extra hour just to make sure I don't rush everyone through, you've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they sign their shit, they don't even look up at the people that are in line, and I really love to make that connection with the people that come there and see that, you make them happy, man. You make them feel good. They'll keep coming back to see you, man. I love it. It's great. And you get paid.
Yeah. Best of all worlds.
Yeah.
So, with you coming back to Minnesota now, and it's interesting looking at really your particular, from your coming up when you're starting with Minnesota being for many, many years, a wrestling state and one of the absolute hotbeds. And then, following, the closing of the AWA around 1990. And then you have the early 90s tape trading years with your match with the Jerry Lynn, whether it was, like you mentioned, at Sharkies, whether it was the ones that had on ESPN that even to this day still get traded in various quality and forms through the internet.
Don't forget my match with Sabu.
Oh, of course. Yep, definitely.
American Indian Center on Franklin.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Hallowed grounds now for that.
Yeah.
So with that happening, and then with the era that you were in, the new generation, as they referred to it then, the WWF, did you feel in a certain way that you were carrying on a tradition, or for lack of a better term, kind of an ambassador for that lineage of Minnesota wrestling?
I never really thought of it in depth until you just brought it up, but I guess so, because I started out in Florida. I was actually born in St. Pete, Florida. So Florida is also it's Minnesota and Florida, two huge hotbeds of wrestling. All the big stars came out of Florida and Minnesota. So I went from Florida, came to Minnesota. I wasn't even 18 yet when I came back to Minnesota. And I embraced being a Minnesotan. Even though I was born in Florida, I decided Minneapolis was great to me. So I actually even changed where I'm billed from. To this day, I'm billed from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and always will be. And I was so proud, and all those guys and women like Medusa too, got to throw her in there, right? they were legendary, you know, like all that crew that came from Grandma B's on, you know, in Northeast Minneapolis, like, you know, Hawk and Animal and all those guys. And man, I just want to be a part of that, like one of them, you know. And so I was really proud to be a Minnesota guy, you know, and I still am. I still am.
Yeah, and it definitely shows. And, you know, as the kid of the Genesis and Super Nintendo era, with you being the one guy billed from Minneapolis on so many of those games, like, yeah, you know, it definitely got a lot of play out here in the land of 10,000 lakes. And during that first WWF run at the time, so WWF at that point, not even a house show had come to Minnesota for those first like 4 years. But you did have a few notable matches, including one at Madison Square Garden with another legendary Minnesotan, Mr. Bob Backlund. And so I'm wondering what your memories are of working with him.
I beat him.
Yep. Yeah.
I beat Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. He went for the chicken wing, and I reversed it and hit him with an O'Connor roll, which is another one of his finishes. Mm-hmm. He, like, I had wrestled Bob on a lot of shows, and I put him over every night, right? And he's such a class act and such a wonderful guy, and he would always go, "Oh, I'm so grateful. I really appreciate it. One day I'll return the favor," you know. And people say that, and it's a nice thing to say, and it's a nice gesture, but you don't think, okay, yeah, one day I'm going to beat Bob Backlund. And we get to Madison Square Garden, and like he walks up to Vince right in front of me, and he goes, "I want to put the kid over tonight." And so that's what happened. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, again, like that Minnesota lineage. So yeah. So do you think, like, with that in mind too, is there sort of a bond that you find wrestlers like from Minnesota kind of have together to a degree?
I hope that's still the case. It sure as hell was when I was younger, you know. Mm-hmm. Nice. You know, even like guys you don't know, but you know, they're from Minnesota. It's like, and you know, you see them, you automatically have that connection with them.
Yeah. And in that same sort of vein, since you've, you know, wrestled in Japan, wrestled in Mexico, and a few years ago I interviewed Scott Norton, and he mentioned how, you know, with the politeness of Minnesotans, that it kind of allows it's a lot closer to the Japanese culture in terms of the politeness, the thankfulness, the respect there. So did you kind of have a kind of an edge to, you think, being Minnesotan and being the Minnesota nice, getting along with people in terms of performing around the world? And how did they react for when they heard you were from Minnesota, if they were familiar with the territory at all or had any questions?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a good question. Like, there is some similarities there, you know, in the way the Japanese people are, just everyone, like, that's the default way people are over there, right? Like, and yeah, you do run into that Minnesota nice thing. That's not just like a saying, that's real. And yeah, I don't know. And even like guys, big, mean, nasty Scott Norton is a sweetheart, you know. Mm-hmm. I love that guy so much. What a great guy he is, man.
Yeah, he's awesome. His book's incredible.
I remember the first time I seen him, like on an Eddie Sharkey show, and he walked in the locker room. I was just blown away. And I'd seen some pretty big dudes, and I'd never seen anything like that guy. But I digress back to what we were talking about. Yeah, it helps being able to get along with people and just be, you know, getting along with people, man. It's not that damn hard, Chaz. Mm-hmm. It's really not, you know?
Yeah. It's that level of just shared respect. And it's, you know, I think, you know, when that's the default that going through, I think it's maybe ingrained in us a bit out here because, you know, we need it to get through the winters. So, but yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the first time that I ever got to see you perform live was October 18th, 1996. I don't know if you remember this. It was the WCW house show at the Target Center. And you wrestled 2 matches that night. One was against longtime rival Jerry Lynn under the name Mr. JL. And then that immediately was followed by you facing Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have any particular memories of that night? Because that was your first time, I think, wrestling in Minnesota for probably since you had debuted on television.
I do. I kind of feel bad telling this story, though, because like they had the show. I mean, I'm in NWO, one of the featured guys on WCW, right? And they have this show at the Target Center and they don't book me on it. And so I'm like, what's good? I'm like, come on, you know? And so last minute they shoehorned me into that thing with Jerry and Chris, and I felt really bad for Jerry. Because I don't know if you remember, I just came out and I just like hit Jerry with like a Colonel De Beers pile driver and left him laying on the floor, and then had my match with Chris. You know, so yeah, I feel bad about that.
Yeah, I guess as a kid,
I love being able to perform in the Target Center in front of my hometown crowd for the first time. And yeah, man, when I first started in WWF, we never came to Minneapolis because we didn't have local television, and they thought that they couldn't run a local market without syndicated TV in that market at the time. They didn't realize like they could run just off of Raw, you know? So
interesting. Yeah. That does make sense because I don't think we even got Superstars until like mid '96, and that was even at the end of the syndication run of that. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There wasn't a WWF show on Saturday night at Ringside Wrestling Block.
There was a Saturday night block, but I'm not sure if WWF was part of that.
They had WCW and like World Class, and I think they might have had WWF for a while at one point and lost. I don't know.
Yeah. It was I'll have to go back into the tape trading archives for that, which is a side note. I find like I enjoy the commercials from those times as much as I enjoy watching the main product of it. Those captured memories. But speaking of the Target Center, so I have a vivid memory of the SummerSlam '99 press conference. You know, of course, the famous one main evented by the Austin Mankind, Triple H, and then Governor Jesse Ventura. And the press conference, like making the big announcement, started with you.
Yes.
And with you coming out and saying, you know, it's about time that Minnesota finally got a pay-per-view, because that was the very first. So I'm curious, like earlier that year, do you recall the moment when you found out that SummerSlam was going to be happening in Minnesota that year?
I don't recall that, but I recall finding out that they were having that press conference and that I wasn't included, and I blew a gasket, Chaz. I was pissed. Wow. I was pissed, man. Yeah. And so they last minute, like, once again, shoehorned me in there. Yeah. And then here's the funny part. It was actually my birthday. And Governor Ventura's birthday was actually the next day, the 14th. I believe that's correct. And they had this big thing to where they were wishing Jesse Ventura happy birthday when it was actually my birthday. And Vince found out it was my birthday and he got so mad no one told him. Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah. So twice at the Target Center then, because it seems like such a layup to book you, and because it seems
getting
like
overlooked, Chaz.
Yeah.
Always getting overlooked, man. I'm so resentful. I'm just kidding.
I'm sure. Yeah, the bitterness is just, you know,
you can tell, right?
Yep. Yeah. No. I guess it just, you know, and it just seems like, you know, as a fan watching it, it seems like, oh yeah, they start the show with the beloved hometown guy who is going to get everyone ready for the whole thing, and the immediate good mood and good vibes about everything, and just wow, yeah, that's amazing to me. So
it was an afterthought.
Huh. Yeah. So then, and of course, following that, and even like before that too, like, you know, you had plenty of moments wrestling out here over the years. Do any particular ones like stand out to you? Like any particular like favorite match or favorite promo that you've had in Minnesota?
Oh, those early matches with Jerry Lynn at Roper's, or was called George's in Fridley before that. 3720 East River Road.
Yeah, you made those posters.
Yeah, I made the posters. A couple of those really stand out. My matches with Jerry, my match with Sabu at the Indian Center, like we talked about, and this is Jerry Lynn again, but the match I had with Jerry at First Avenue. I don't know if you know about that one.
Oh yeah, First Wrestling, because that was I want to say 2009.
I I wasn't really doing singles matches anymore. Like, and that was one of my last singles matches. And I was really happy with it. It went really well. People liked it. It was received well, and the place was packed. And you know, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
'cause I was living in New York at the time when that happened, and even word getting out there amongst New York fans that another
Yeah.
one more time it was going to happen was a really cool thing to have transpired. So
And
that's
then
awesome.
of course, Jerry Lynn's retirement match where I tore my butthole.
Yeah. Was that was that here though in Minnesota?
Yeah, that was at the convention center.
Oh wow!
It was like a 6-man or like a 3-way or a 4-way dance or something.
Mhm.
You know, because we were all too old to actually have singles matches at that point.
Uh yeah. I because I heard of the injury. I wasn't aware that happened here. So
Yeah, dude.
yeah. But another multi-man match that I want to ask you about because I was fortunately to be in the house for it. The match with you, Hurricane, and teaming up with Jushin Liger
Oh, you
to
were there?
yep, yeah, at the WrestleCon show in
Oh,
2019.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was during the Liger, the probably one of the best received retirement tours that one person did.
Yeah.
And so how was it being in the ring with Liger for such a as part of a major run like that?
I mean, I wrestled him in Japan one time.
Yeah.
And um, it was an honor to be in that tag match, but I was so wound up and like, I could, here I am, like talking, like, this is kind of funny. I wasn't happy with things, and like I made it about me, and it was Liger's freaking retirement match, and I should have just like been chill and just got out there and just not worried about anything. But I was overly concerned. Some things got messed up in the match, and I blew a gasket. My music was wrong, and like I was mad about that. And it's just like, oh my God, Sean, maybe it's time you quit this.
Yeah, I will say if that was like happening during it, that did not service at all in the match. Like I loved it, and the people who I was there
you,
with loved it
you
too.
don't remember how long it took me for me to come out after my music was playing?
I thought that was intentional because of the sheer surprise of it, because no one knew that you
No.
could be one of the partners there. So
I
wow.
was going off on anyone that like within earshot, and it was yeah,
Yeah.
not good.
Gotcha. So yeah, so that was not the preferred music you wanted. Didn't want the 90s because that was the 98 X-Pac theme.
Yeah, and I never liked the X-Pac team.
Mhm.
I loved, like, my very favorite is the Run DMC DX
Mhm.
theme.
Yeah, I was actually
Love
yeah, I was going to ask about that too because yeah, Backlash 2000, like at the height of really the wrestling zenith in pop culture, and then coming out to one of the most iconic, important groups in the history of American music of the 20th century, and they're remaking your theme.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this Run DMC. I was at the My Adidas tour, like, when I'm a kid, and like, it's just like, couldn't have found anyone cooler as far as I was concerned at the time to do our music. I couldn't believe it when I heard they were going to do it. And yeah, Backlash 2000, me and Road Dogg and I, right, versus
Right.
Edge and Christian. That was a hell of a match.
Yeah.
Hard match to follow, but Dean Malenko and Scotty Tuati went out and did it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty good.
God, those guys.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. Yeah. So yeah, great dude. Yeah.
Hey, that DX remix they did? I'm not like 100% sure about this, but I think that's the very last song they did when Jay was still alive before Jay got shot.
That could be because they did have the final album that came out. It came out a year after that, but it was notoriously delayed for 2.5-3 years. So that might have there's a good chance that chronologically that was the last one that they made together. So not released, but that sounds about right, knowing how plagued that final Run DMC album is. So yeah, because that was the album that was then it was largely also produced by the lead singer of Third Eye Blind, because music industry, why not in that point in time? Yeah, this is our time. So the last one that I know that fans are really into is that DX remix. So cool. Yeah. So so then going back now, so we have Twin Cities Con this weekend, and being able to make these convention appearances. Do you have any favorite things that fans have brought up that you've signed over the years, or anything that maybe really surprised you, like they've held on for memorabilia?
I'm going to tell you one thing that freaked me out.
Yeah.
Was, I had a rough patch in my life back in the 2000s, right? I'm pretty sure everyone knows. Well, at one point, I left everything in my apartment that I owned, all these pictures and just left everything. And I had no idea whatever happened to it. And I'm at doing a show here in LA, and a guy is sitting in the crowd holding up this picture. It's a picture off my wall from that apartment that apparently they got at an auction, because they auctioned all my stuff off when I never came back for it. And so, yeah, he had a picture. It was a picture off of my wall from my apartment, and it freaked me out, man. Actually, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's the craziest thing that anyone ever brought to me to have signed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was the person who had it though, were they at least approachable, or was it still kind of
they were great. Yeah, they were fine. And I didn't it wasn't like I'm going, hey, give me that. That's mine.
Yeah.
I'm glad someone had it that, there was when I took Kane's mask off him in 2002, I still had that mask, and that mask ended up just, who knows where it is now, because I left everything in my apartment.
Wow.
Yeah. Bummer, huh?
Yeah, sometimes it happens, but but eventually, sometimes with how the universe is, maybe it all will potentially come back. And
it's stuff, man. It's stuff. I'm glad somebody's enjoying it.
Yeah, cool. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, even beyond the scope of Minnesota, across your whole career, you have the legendary match with Brett from '94. You have the number of matches, just too many to count, from whether the cruiserweight division in WCW through the rise and return of X-Pac in the 90s, through like you mentioned, even so many of the great the lucha stuff in the late aughts in Mexico. Do you have any match that you're particularly proud of that you wish was more known amongst your fan base?
Ooh. A few. There's a match I had with Otani in the Super Juniors, 1993 Super Juniors tournament. One with Eddie Guerrero that I was real proud of. Wow. There were a couple matches in Mexico on some house shows, some live events. That I had some great matches with some of the guys down there, guys like Zorro, Cibernetico. I mean, anyways, just tons of guys. And I think the number one match that I think most people don't know I had was my match with El Generico, who's now Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
From I think it was 2009 Chikar King of Trios tournament.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's a favorite of mine too. I have that DVD. So that's
the last great singles match I ever had.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it might not be that match, but I think the last match where you wrestled as the 1-2-3 Kid, I think Colt Cabana has those tights now.
Yeah, I gave him those tights. Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Well, awesome. Fantastic. Thanks again so much for doing this. And I'm looking very forward to seeing you this weekend at Twin Cities Con, November 3rd through the 5th, here in the great city of Minneapolis. So
thank you, Chaz. I appreciate you, man. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it too.
I spent all year trying to think of my costume. Halloween's over.
What do we do now?
You can wear those costumes to Twin Cities Con. Minnesota's Comic-Con is back the weekend after Halloween. Catch your favorite celebs like Danny Trejo, Jason Lee, and the cast of Clerks, Mallrats, Star Wars, Blue's Clues, Bluey, Avatar, Naruto, and so much more. Buy tickets now at TwinCitiesCon.com.